Today is day 4 of the April 87 7-day retreat. Maybe today we can look into a variety of questions, maybe bringing them all together. One question: where does fantasy come from? And a very, very frequent question: what is the difference between thinking and awareness? I'm not so sure the questioner will say that I'm really aware. Maybe I'm just thinking. And thinking that I'm aware in that thinking. Then there was a question: who is aware? And another question: is self-consciousness awareness? What is self-consciousness? It's really of utmost importance that there's clarity, that there be clarity between, no, not between, clarity in what is a thought and what is awareness. The relationship between the two, if any. And one can't achieve that clarity by trying to think it out, because it's thinking. So can we, right now again, as we sit here together, see directly what is thought? It's really not difficult, it's very simple. Thought/fantasy. Not much difference between thought and fantasy. Thought being more verbal, fantasy, images. Both of them coming from memory. I can give that answer right at the beginning. But it is for each one of us to see directly thought coming from memory, and we can do this right now by remembering what it is that we ate last. What did we eat last? Last time. Maybe this morning or last night. And on some kind of an internal screen, there is the bowl or the plate with the different foods on it. One can see it on that internal screen. This is memory. Or a thought or image issuing from memory, from remembering what one last ate this morning or last night. In listening right now, is that a thought? Is that a fantasy? Or is there the immediacy of awareness of that? Is that a thought? Is the thought there, this is a bird singing? There's a bird outside. That's thought, isn't it? There's a bird. The word bird is thought, issuing from memory, because one has known birds before and has remembered them. The word bird singing is thought, word/thought coming from memory. And just listening, does that need memory or word or thought? Is it possible to listen without the memory? There may be an instant where there's this pure perception, the pure listening, pure awareness. And then is there immediately thought, this is a bird, and even maybe the brain not satisfied with the word bird. If one is all interested in birds, there may be a scanning going on through the memory files of the brain, looking for what name of a bird goes with this bird call. The brain may not hit it right away, and then the searching is going on. There's a certain tension set up. Maybe one hits upon the name, maybe one doesn't, but that process is memorizing, trying to remember, looking for the name. And while that's going on and the tension is set up in the body, the listening is at best in the background. Or maybe sometimes to aid the memory, one may quietly attend for a moment to aid the memory with the direct listening. In listening to what's going on there, is it possible to see the words coming up but not be closed in, not be narrowed down, the mind not being narrowed down and back into the thinking mode? Is it possible to see that the word is thought, or is the word, and not that, so that the listening is not obscured? Maybe temporarily, but one sees, that's a word, it's a memory. And that is what it is. So that the mind is constantly opening up again to what actually is, seeing what thought is, and seeing, feeling the narrowing down, which happens in the brain. If the awareness of the bird song is back, then it's no problem. If the awareness is not back, but one is caught up in the train of thought, then one is in that narrow groove of thinking of birds, and then what birds remind one of a walk one has taken yesterday, which was so lovely. And maybe I'll take a walk again this afternoon. What time would I take it? Maybe between 2 and 3, would I have time then? And so on and so on. A mixture of memory, thought, planning, fantasy, some pleasure in there, the remembered beauty of the walk and the anticipation of similar pleasure. And in that, then one is in the cinema, as it were, in a small space, dominated by all of what has been described. Memory, word, fantasy, wanting, pleasure, and so forth. And the twittering of the birds right now is not, it's shut out. And then there's a moment in which there is a waking up to being in this memory channel, in this memory projection room. One can wake up to that. There can be a sudden awareness of that. And then what happens? It's very crucial what happens at that moment. Waking up to the fact that there has been thinking, dreaming, fantasy, planning, and so forth going on. The awareness is of that, the memory of that process still reverberating in the brain. Can be seen at a glance that this is what was going on. Then what happens at that moment? I think all of us have had this experience, which is even more dramatic, of waking up from a dream. Let's take a pleasant dream. A dream that really felt good. The whole body is feeling good. From this dream that has been going on. But the waking up is interrupting that dream. One wakes up. Is there a real internal pressure or wanting to continue that dream? It was so pleasant. I don't want that interrupted. I think we all know that. How would that dream have ended? I want to finish it. It seemed so promising. So how is it here when there's waking up to the fact that there has been thinking and fantasizing? Are there instantly the birds, the movement of the screens? We're using words because we're talking to each other. In listening, one doesn't need words. But if they come up, can one see that they're words and not the actual sound of the moving of the screen? So in waking up to a memory that has been, a train of thought that has been going on, is there instantly the awareness of what is? Or is there instantly judgment of the fact that there was dreaming, thinking, and not attending? Berating oneself or wondering how good one ever will be at this thing of awareness, how impossible it is, how difficult, how hopeless one is. All these thoughts, which are just, one has switched from one train to another. An instant of awareness, just enough to change trains. And off one is. Because I think we're so trained, so habituated, as though now were our second nature to judge, evaluate, comment upon, explain, justify, or condemn what is going on. So next time this happens, awareness that there was thinking, and then the new train of judgment, condemnation, or whatever, can one quickly wake up to that this is going on. Or will one take a long ride? I don't know. One doesn't know. Maybe, as we said, with a night dream, the fantasy was so pleasant that one doesn't want to lose or give up that pleasure. One wants to continue it. Can there be a glimpse of awareness of that this is why the fantasy continues? Very difficult, because as the fantasy has grip, has hold, there's no awareness. And if there's an instant of awareness, and it is pushed aside by the momentum of wanting the pleasure, again there's no attention. But one will wake up again. This is the amazing thing, that we do wake up without any particular cause. Suddenly there is a moment of attention. Not that one has said, well, I better be attentive now, and then one is attentive. I better be attentive now is thought. Do you see that? There have been a glimpse, a fraction of an instant of attention, and then the thought, I better be attentive now. Or maybe no attention at all, just a switching of trains of thought. I mustn't fantasize, I must be attentive. How do I do it? What's the best method? Maybe someone will tell me, maybe I can read it in a book. Thought. And then a moment of awareness of that, where it's clear, this is what one was thinking. And can there be nothing at that moment? No doing, no judging. Which means very subtle, intense awareness of all of these urges, these conditioned urges to judge, to condemn, to comment, to react, of all of that wanting to come up, but seeing it. And because it's seen, it is dispelled. The seeing dispels habit. It's really seen. It doesn't take over. And it has nothing to do with the power of will or repression. It's something new which has been given the name of the energy of wisdom or energy of intelligence that comes out of awareness, that is awareness. Maybe we'll start all over again, not using something acoustic, auditory, something more visual or feeling. Why? Sometimes people tell me, you must be an auditory person, or because you use listening so much. Or sometimes people say, you must be more visual, your brain, the right side or the left side or whatever, because you use so many visual, you talk about seeing. This is our urge to explain. When attention is open, when the listening is open, so is the seeing. seeing and hearing and feeling and touching, sense of touch. They need not be fragmented aspects of ourselves. They can work as a unified whole. If the mind, the brain doesn't interpret and name what is seen, differentiating it from what is heard, differentiating it from what is felt, and so forth. That's why sometimes in the Zen tradition it is said to see with one's ears and to hear with one's eyes, meaning the non-separation of the senses when they're open and not dominated by the interpreting brain. The interpreting and fragmenting thought process. So here sitting, all of us have two legs right there. Here and there. This here is what it is. It's not just leg, it's also the hands touching the cloth. There's clothing there. I'm using words. But the words, hands rubbing up and down the legs and feeling the clothing, all of this description is not this here. This is not words. This is, what is it? It's not the description, it's not the words. But as long as we cling to the description, my hands are touching my legs and I can feel the clothing and some wrinkles there of the pants. As long as the mind is caught in the verbal description, it's not in touch with the actuality of this. The actuality of this can be there, come into being, when the explaining words are quiet, in the background, let's say, not interfering. Do you see that? The knee touching the mat, these are words. But this actual happening is not verbal. And if I want to find out, what is this actually? Because I'm so used to thinking I know what something is when I know the words. That's how we've been trained. Little children in school are trained to start living in words rather than actualities. It's a very sad process. I'm going to be careful here that I'm not throwing out education or so. Somebody blamed me for that once. Influencing their child to leave school. But I remember once on a beautiful day, it was a day like this, first day of warm spring. The leaves were barely out on the tree. There's a tree right in front of our house. I was sitting in the living room and the school, elementary school, is right opposite us. And the school doors opened and out burst a bunch of kids. It was a joy. They were just feeling the joy of being out there, running, and tumbling, or rolling over each other. And they had to cross the street because the tree's on the other side, and the teacher called them to order, and they orderly crossed the street, well, in a manner of order. There was too much energy there to really be orderly. And then all these kids had to assemble around this tree and listen for at least 10 minutes to the teacher explaining the tree. And obviously the kids were doing everything else but listen to that. Kicking each other, pulling each other's hair, making jokes, or doing, how do you say when you, somersault. The roots are so high, so there's a little incline. Nice to roll down that incline of the tree. That's palpable. The root system in words means nothing to a child. And of course, the problem the teacher had keeping these kids in order to listen to her explanation of, I don't know what she explained. A lot to be said about a tree. But no manner of words and explanations are that tree. That tree is something that defies all words and explanations. And through all of our schooling, we lose the feeling of mystery for what a tree is. The not knowing, and the not knowing being in the presence of this magnificent thing called a tree. Whether it's a little one, or medium size, or big one, it's utterly mysterious, isn't it? If we keep the words and explanations that we had to learn in school in abeyance, and look at that thing. We don't know how to look. No one in school teaches us how to look. For one thing, it's not teachable, but everything that happens in school keeps us from looking. Except maybe some of the training in science, scientific observation, but that is always in terms of a hypothesis. One has to have a hypothesis in order to look at the facts. So we were here with legs. Maybe there is an ache in the leg. Some people have reported that they really got aching legs. Maybe the explanation is I haven't sat a lot. But why give an explanation? Why not just find out what an aching leg is? And to find out in the process of inquiring into this, how much one is influenced by the idea of this leg aching. This idea being linked with memory of ache, knowledge of ache, memory of previous aches, memory of how these aches usually on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th day got worse. Thoughts that maybe I'm injuring myself and I'm not pleading for sitting against the fear of injury. Change the posture, sit on a chair or take a walk. There's no bravado expected here of sitting through pain even if one hurts one's knees, which happens in Zen centers. I know it for a fact. So, here, the aching leg, what is it? If I don't know it, it's a tremendous challenge, isn't it, to find out what something is. If I realize all I've been bringing to it is my knowledge, my remembrance, and the fears or discontent or disgust that goes with it, or the rejection, the escape from it. What is it when I don't know it? When I don't call it knee, when I don't call it right knee, when I don't call it pain, when I don't know what causes it or what will be the outcome. When I don't know. Is it possible? sit there, not knowingly, in the presence of what's actually there. The insecurity of that, to put up with that. And not to know that either. Because that insecurity has a voice that says, where are you going with this? What's going to happen to you? So, to let be what is in the presence of not knowing. A word comes up, it's a word, it's not this. One can see that, can't one? A word is a word, and this is this, but what is this when I have no word? Oh, the bird singing, oh, the breath, the breathing. What is it when I don't know it? When I don't call it inhalation and exhalation? When I have no standards, it should be deep breathing, it shouldn't be shallow breathing, it should be long, it shouldn't be short, all of these ideas. All of the stuff we've read about the breath, attending to the breathing, what it will do for us. When all of that recedes into the background because it's seen for not being the real thing. And I want to find out what's the real thing. I don't know if I can find out, but I can ask the question. And to really find something out, the mind has to be so quiet, so astute, alert. Motionless. It comes natural. If one wants to find something out, it comes very natural to be quiet and still in the presence of something that is being observed, being listened to or felt, as for the first time. In that there is no boredom. People often say it gets so boring sitting. Boring is our mechanical, repetitive, everlasting thought processing. That's boring. But to find out what something is this instant without the mechanical, boring thought processes carrying us away into endless tracks. There's nothing boring about it. A whole new world opens up in which there may be fear. The fear of not knowing, the fear of the unknown. Not the word, mind you. That word can already give one the shivers. But let's not shiver over words. Let's find out what fear is. We talked about it at length, one whole full talk. In not knowing, in the presence of what is, let the fear be there and not know it as fear. See and understand that the word and the reaction and the associations are not the real thing, and therefore in the way. One may find to one's surprise that a pain is not what one has thought to be, and fear is not what one was afraid it would be. One is finding out something beyond thought. there was this question of who is it that is aware? Maybe every one of us has asked it at one time or another, or can ask it right now. Who is it that is aware when there's awareness? Where does the question come from? Why is one asking this question? Is there real puzzlement? Is there really a feeling that there is someone who's aware? Or is it our habitual thinking that when something is going on, there must be somebody who's doing it? That's a habitual way of thinking, isn't it? When something is going on, there must be somebody who's doing it. This is how we live and think. If there's walking going on, there must be somebody who's doing it. And the answer, when asked each other, well, who is it that's walking? The answer would most likely be, well, I am walking. It's me. There was some walking during the night and somebody heard it and asked in the morning, was it you that was walking? And one says, yes, I was walking. That serves to identify who did the walking. It was me, it wasn't X, Y, or Z. So that to say it was I that was walking is a useful aid in communicating. But is there this feeling, I am walking? And if that feeling is very much there, I am walking, what is it based on? Does one want to find out why one thinks the way one does? Or does one take it for granted that the way we think is right? It represents the truth, the reality. We do that. We've never been questioned or learned to question everything. We've always learned to accept. So, in saying, I am walking, what does one mean? Other than what we just said, the identification of the one who did that walking during the night. Is there an image of me walking, an idea of me doing the walking? Some me in there that is in charge of the walking? That gets complicated, doesn't it? Or doesn't it? Is there an image of me walking? A self-conscious image? Thinking of oneself as walking? Maybe not at the moment of walking, one may not think about that at all, but if somebody says, who is doing this walking? Then automatically the answer is, well, me, of course. But here we're going beyond the automatic response. We're saying, what brings that forth? What assumptions, what images, what ideas and concepts? And as we have come upon it in many talks here, again there's this deeply lodged concept of an I, of a me, that is doing whatever I'm doing. Which is a thought. That there's walking, when there's walking, is not under question. That's what's going on. Next time around, can one just listen to that and feel it? So thoroughly, so wonderingly, that there's no room for the thought, I am doing that. Or if that thought comes up because we've discussed it, one sees it's a thought. There's just this going on. Maybe not quite as klutzy as that. So who is aware when there's awareness? Does one see the conditioned need to have somebody there? Or is there a feeling, I am aware? A thought/feeling. Feelings and thoughts are very closely inter-associated, interconnected. A thought immediately arousing a feeling, and a feeling arousing more thoughts. If the thought arises at a moment of awareness, I am aware, then that's no longer awareness. That's a thought. An image. Maybe evaluating positively the fact that one is aware. How nice that I'm aware, finally. It's the end of it. If one is really wondering, who is it that's aware? That wondering itself, where does it lead? Into thought? If it leads into thought, then one is stuck with thought and explanation. Or doubt. But if there's just wondering and listening in this awareness, not having any conclusion that there is somebody who is aware or has to be aware, having no conclusion, really not knowing whether indeed there is a me or not. One will not say there is, one will not say there is not. One is just wondering and is listening in wonderment. And the sound of the water and the birds and the wind and the pines is very clear. Footsteps are very palpable, very clear. And there's not a feeling of separation, of me and nature, or me and the birds. It's not separate. When there's no thought of me, and there's no separation. And it's just whatever is, including and it is utterly marvelous, not to be explained. It can be explained with words, but that's not the marvel. That's the explanation. Do you get a feeling for that there's nothing to be done? That awareness is effortless. It is without will, without direction. And no time. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about yesterday. It's not about now either, because that's a concept. It's just what is. With which I'm not saying that there's not room or place for planning, for thinking intelligently. To put a retreat together involves an enormous amount of thinking and planning. To come to a retreat involves thinking, planning, earning the money, making the reservations on the plane or getting a ride. Thinking and imagining has its place, but can one be aware of how it functions? When it functions intelligently, clearly, and when it functions divisively, separating me from you. Nature from man or woman. God from man and woman. All these separations that thought has invented. Because in itself it is a fragment. Thought can never be the whole. Can think about it, but it has to be quiet for the whole to be. Not controlled into quietness or suppressed into quietness. Please don't misunderstand. It is seeing it for what it is. And that seeing, when it's not judgmental or self-centered, that is whole. We will end here for today.